Hi and welcome back to Softtonic.com, and that was a little bit more reggae than I was expecting. I'm Alex and we are here today to look at WWE 2K15, and John Cena there, standing proud with really conspicuous nipples, because you look at that video, you look at that picture far too much. It's hard to avoid at some point. Anyway, this is the PC version of the console game that came out at the end of last year. And it kind of shows, and I'm not talking about the gameplay, although that feels a bit stiff and dated because it doesn't feel like they've done as much work on the engine as was hoped. I mean in the wrestlers. Now, jumping straight into the kind of quick start fights that you can just set up battles between people. Now here's what I'm talking about when I say that it feels a bit dated. John Cena, yes, still a 96. But all of these kind of ratings seem to be based on something that happened. They seem to be based on last year's stats. And at this point, this came out after WrestleMania, and a lot has changed. I mean, I think the key example is Cesaro, who's up here at the top with a 93, which is one of the highest ratings in the game. It's the third highest rating in the game, I believe, actually. And he's kind of languishing at the moment. He certainly is not a 93. He lost a lot of momentum within the storylines. And yes, wrestling is all about the storylines. So it all feels a little bit forced. Like you have the Shield, 93, members of the Shield I should say, 91, and 92. So those three members of the Shield are all in here, but they're not part of the Shield anymore. They've all been divided up, and that just doesn't seem to work. If you're into wrestling, this release was a bit late to feel relevant. Anyway, I am a Dean Ambrose fan, so let's hop into that. Actually, Dean Ambrose does show off one of the things. Like, they seem to have had a really odd pick of promotional images. Dean Ambrose looks like he's been airbrushed or CG'd, whereas R-Truth just looks like a photo. And while it's very slickly presented, there seems to be some inconsistency in there. Also, I had to turn down a few of the settings in the game because it was experiencing some slowdown before. Hopefully we're going to avoid that. On my home computer I don't have that problem, so it might just be that I'm capturing. Go with the game. Now, hopefully the other thing we're going to see is the new mechanic that's in the game. This doesn't feel to have progressed, despite talk about this being the first, here we go, this being the first real game developed by 2K, as in it was THQ before that, and this is the first time that they've had like full control of the license from day one. So the WrestleMania game last year, 30 years of WrestleMania, was built on old technology, and they were kind of saying that this was going to be something different, but it really doesn't feel like it. It still feels just as stiff as it used to, as you might be getting by looking at this now. But the one thing they did add was that kind of weird section you saw at the moment there. If you get into a grapple like this, you go into a, what you would call, I suppose, rock, paper, scissors mechanic. And then once you're in the rock, paper, scissors mechanic, and whoever won that then has to win that kind of right stick mini game. And once you have that, you have to hold down for the longest, which I'm doing, and then you win the fight. And it creates a lot of groundwork, which wasn't always in the wrestling games, which makes it feel a bit more wrestling, which I'm into. But it does speak to one of the big problems that I actually have with wrestling games in general, which is, wrestling is staged, and trying to make it feel real can be odd, and because they feel like they should be a fighting game, you feel like when you're in a grapple or something you should be hammering the buttons, whereas in fact you should be waiting a lot longer and having far more paced and planned controls. There's a lot of countering required, and you'll see occasionally the kind of right trigger prompt comes up, and if I hit that on time, then I can counter and get out of the grapples and things, whereas if I just keep hammering, I miss those and I just end up having the momentum against me and I get pummeled to the ground. Come on now. Yeah! But Dean Ambrose has changed a lot. I really want some dirty deeds, but I don't think we're going to be getting those. But yeah, I think you get the basic idea here. Hopefully we're going to build enough momentum, unleash a special, and then we can move on. So yeah, I kind of enjoy these games, but this game hasn't added much, and the stiffness of the movement it doesn't feel superior, and I think that's what everybody was hoping for. I know with yearly games they're kind of stuck in a place where they won't necessarily be able to make the changes that people and the fans want year to year, but with all the hope coming from this actually being a new developer and bringing in digital realities, because it certainly looks better person to person, but yeah, it's not there yet. Here's a finisher. Here we go. And a power pin. 2, 3. Yes. So yeah, that is the kind of standard get in, have a fight. But there are obviously other modes on offer. The one thing that they have taken out is the kind of situation creator, story creator. But that's been replaced with a career mode that allows you to take a character that you build through the NXT, the developmental league, and into WrestleMania. But my favourite mode, which I would call the real single player, while My Career takes you through all of the developmental stuff quite intelligently, the 2K Showcase is the kind of replacement of the WrestleMania story, which was last year's, and it takes famous moments from wrestling and builds them into you fight through elements of the story. We'll just have a quick look, and this is always bookended by the WWE's incredible video packages.
3 men battled for a chance to challenge John Cena.
Skip that, we won't avoid everything. But yeah, it puts together these really tight video packages that you would have seen if you watch wrestling, and puts it together in a way that just allows you to really get into these bouts in a different way. And it's a story. I mean, it's a fun story that's a lot more grounded than the rest of the game, maybe, and just gives you a little bit more follow-through. Within this, you'll be given like mini tasks within your fights. We'll have a quick look at. I'm sure it'll give me one here. By meeting those requirements, you enter into a different level of the game that you then spark moments. So it used to be WrestleMania moments. That's not what it is in these, obviously, because you're at WrestleMania. I'm beaten. Anyway, we're not going to go through all of this. So I've got to critically damage John Cena to reach the goal here, which is a full fight, which we don't want to go through. You've seen me fight once. You have the idea. It's wrestling. It's stiff. Some of the stuff they've done is interesting. It's a nice start. It would have been really nice to see that they had, for want of a better word, scrapped everything and started again. But I think with Yuke still on board as the primary developer, that's not going to be happening anytime too soon. But you never know. Maybe they're going to take... Maybe the hope is always when you hit these games that feel like they're in a holding pattern, that the next stage will be an actual evolution. Who knows? Thanks for watching. That was the WWE 2K15. Really just one for the fans, and at this point, if you missed the initial release on console, it does come with all the DLC, which is nice, but, you know, it's a little behind the times, as it were. If you've been watching all the wrestling, you're going to feel a little bit like it feels dated already, which is a shame, because I would have really enjoyed playing this before the start of the new season, as it were, of wrestling. Thanks a lot. Catch you next time for more game videos on softtonic.com. Bye.